Hey everybody, welcome to The Warp. I'm Jack Rita, and in this series of videos that I'm going to call the Alpha Series, where I'm going to do what is the best alien that starts with that letter. And we are going to start, of course, with the letter A. So this will be a 26 video series, one a week, and I'm going to spotlight what I think is the best alien that starts with a certain letter. So in A, there are a bunch of aliens that do start with the letter A, and there were a few contenders. There were a few that I strongly considered before settling on the one that I did end up picking. And one of the ones that I almost picked was Anarchist, because I really enjoy how much it shakes up the game. It does have a little bit of an alt-win condition built into it as an extra part of its alien power. But it did get edged out by what I think is a really strong alien that statistically is going to do really well. And that alien is going to be the Aristocrat. And I've got a link in the description to the Cosmic Con tournament finals where I played Aristocrat and won. And it was definitely in due a large part to the alien power. So a lot of times you just win because you had a really good hand at the right time. Your alien power maybe helped you out at different times, but it isn't necessarily central to why you won the game, though definitely is some of the time, maybe even a lot of the time, but not all of the time. But in this case, Aristocrat was very central to that win. So let's take a look real quick at what it does. It does have some game setup, which is really the the part that is the most powerful. So after flares are added to the deck, but before hands are dealt, you have 1 minute to look through the deck, and you're going to take any 8 cards except for the Aristocrat Super Flare, and you're going to use those cards to form your hand and then reshuffle the deck, deal out everyone else's hands at that point. So that is a real powerful effect, being able to pick your starting hand of 8 cards. Then it goes on further. You have the power of privilege, and when you're a main player, anytime before encounter cards are selected, you may use this power to draw a flare from the unused, or in this case, used flare deck, add it to your hand. Then if you have 2 or more flares in your hand that do not match another alien's power in the game, you choose one to remove from the game. So in addition to getting to pick your starting hand, you are going to be having flares in your hand for pretty much all of the game. And flares are nice. I mean, it's a real crapshoot sometimes with flares. You'll get one that's really powerful that you can use just about every encounter. And sometimes you get one that you're just not going to be able to use until the stars have aligned and the conditions are just right. So, you know, it's nice to get them because more often than not, you're going to get a flare that you're going to be able to use at least once in the game, maybe a couple of times in that game. It's nice that it has built into the effect in this version, the Fantasy Flight version, where, you know, if Antimatter's in the game and you've got the Antimatter flare and you're like, great, let's get rid of that so they can never have their super. It used to be that you could do that, but now it's clear that you can't, which I think makes sense, and it's a good change. So yeah, for me, my strategy for using this in that tournament final at Cosmic Con, it was informed a lot by what other aliens were in the game. And one of those aliens in that game was Mesmer, which I knew could use an artifact as any artifact, and they were just going to hand zap me the first chance they got. So I loaded up on artifacts. I got a bunch of artifacts, including all of the card zaps and cosmic zaps, so that I could make sure, I think I'm mostly focused on that. I wanted to make sure I could stop Mesmer from really fiddling with me. And Mesmer ended up not getting any artifacts that entire game. So that was a very effective part. A little bit of luck for sure. But I figured if I had most of them, that meant that they were less likely to get some. And I wanted to, I got the ionic gas, of course, so that I could prevent somebody from taking compensation from me at least one time. So that was important as well. And of course, I picked up 2 high attack cards so that I could win some encounters. But I think part of it was I wanted to make sure that I could get into as a defensive ally and get some rewards. We were using the reward deck, which I ended up doing. So it is nice. You don't really, with 1 minute, you don't have time to read a lot of flares. So unless it's a flare that you kind of know its effect, you're like, oh, I know this is great. Like the Parasite Flare, great, I'll get that. That might come in handy for a nice sneaky free colony at some point. Things like the Antimatter Flare. You might want to quickly scan to see if it's a flare that you have to give away after using it one time, but it certainly is not against the rules for you to start thinking ahead of time and have your sort of aristocrat bucket list of cards like, all right, this is what I'm going to get just about any time, and here's a few flares to look for, see if they're in the deck, because those are great to add in. That's over 200 flares you're going to have to scan through and figure out which ones are going to be most effective, but there's definitely some in there that are great. I'm not going to recommend any because you have to do your own research. But yeah, I think that out of all of the A aliens, that Aristocrat is the best of the bunch. Let me know in the comments if you think there's an alien that it starts with the letter A that you think is better than Aristocrat, and make your case. I think you're wrong. Clearly, I read through all the aliens. I'm familiar with them. And there were a couple, like Ace can be a lot of fun, but can also be a lonely and awful experience as Ace. And in that same Cosmic Con tournament, we had somebody in the sort of the semifinals who played Ace, and they just got devastated. So Ace can be very effective, but not as often, I think, game per game as Aristocrat. So that's my thoughts on letter A. We'll see you in a week, and we'll see what the best B alien is. And yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.